Excuse me, I was muted a little bit. Here we go. Let's start over again. Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is CraigCrash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. We've got a lot of playoff football to talk about, whether it be the college football national championship game that was played last night. If you're watching us live, Monday night, if you're listening to us or watching us on YouTube. And then we've got the NFL postseason. It's time for our playoff preview. Get into that a little bit as
Spoiler alert. None of us are picking the Colts.
Right, true. We're also going to dive into the Colts a little bit as well. But Brandon also, I mean, this is a big week for us because our Super Bowl champions or Super Bowl picks from the NFC square off in the wild card round of the postseason. So no matter what, one of our Super Bowls will be wrong, come the end of this weekend.
Yeah, we don't take the easy road, do we? We always have to square off early.
We do.
I'm confident in my pick. Not really anymore.
Yeah, they've not been playing the greatest, but but before we get into it, B. Scott, how was your weekend? You had the FCS championship to go over. That so we'll start the playoff conversation there. That was a fun, experience. North Dakota State wins.
Barn burner.
Yes, North Dakota State wins that one. How was your weekend, B. Scott?
It could have been better. Battling what very well could be COVID. So, covering a championship while coming down with COVID, tell you what, it's not very fun, but got the job done. North Dakota State won their 9th championship in 11 years. I'll call it like it is. They're Alabama of the FCS, taking out the 8 seed Montana State, who, by the way, in the quarterfinals took out defending national champion and number 1 seed Sam Houston. So, but unfortunately for Montana State, on the third play of the game, they lose their starting quarterback to an apparent ankle injury, and that just kind of derailed their entire offensive game plan, and it just kind of shook their whole team because even their defense just couldn't find a rhythm. Props to the most outstanding player of the game, North Dakota State's fullback, halfback extraordinaire, Hunter Luepke, 3 touchdowns in the first half. Unreal performance by him. I mentioned this stat on the FCS Twitter feed. Props to the North Dakota State offensive line. There's an offensive line that, hey, if you're in need for some linemen in the NFL, take a look at that one. They paved the road for 380 rushing yards in the entire game. There was just no answer for that Bison rushing attack. It was unbelievable. So props to them. 9 and 11 seasons. Wow. Talk about dominance.
I'd be interested to see.
That's the playoff format. That's the larger playoff format for you. 9 times in 11 seasons, you still come out with the same champion.
I don't know if that would translate over to the FBS level, but
I don't know. With the way Alabama, in the past few years, Alabama's lost or hasn't won the championship 2-3 times.
In the past, how many years?
In the past decade, let's just say since they started their dominant run.
If they would have won last night, it would have been 7 and 13 years. But I think
it's 6 and 13 years.
But that would, instead it's 6 and 13.
Very close to the pace of North Dakota State.
It is technically, but I also think that, I think it would be a little bit different because the programs are more prestigious. The NIL I think would play a big part into it. I think
Well, you
because
can't. I don't want to talk about the programs that are more prestigious. It's a different level of football. Yes.
you're wait, so you don't agree they're more prestigious? You don't
No,
agree out?
I don't. I don't want to look at that as an argument as to why
Okay,
there
so
wouldn't be such pure domination by by Alabama in the FBS compared to North Dakota State in
well,
the FCS
so
because it's
Alabama,
comparing apples to oranges there.
this run that Alabama is on, is or has been on is it's kind of a perfect storm of everything. It's the fact that you have a legendary coach in Nick Saban. It's the fact that yes, Alabama when he took over was a dumpster fire. They were getting rid of Mike Shula. They were losing to the likes of UL Monroe. But that program has a lot of history. There's a lot of pride in that fan base. And it also happened during a time in which, at the end of the BCS's run, the SEC was starting to dominate and gain more fervor on the national scale for people to, for them to, gravitate towards. So, if, because great example would be Clemson. I don't know, but Clemson's, I don't know if they're necessarily your typical blue blood in college football prior to their run. I know they had not really.
I remember times where prior to Dabo getting there, that the biggest news Clemson would make is they got in a fight on the field with their rival South Carolina.
Right. So, but I mean, to a much lesser scale, I mean, Clemson this year, they have a down year. The ACC is completely not even in contention to make the playoffs because Clemson's not there. If Clemson were, if the ACC were at the level of the SEC, they wouldn't have been out after losing, week 1 to Georgia. They wouldn't have been out losing week, whatever week that was when they lost to NC State. So I'm just saying that it's kind of a perfect storm of, what got to Alabama to its level. Not to say that it's not deserved, but I'm saying that if there were more parity, I think there would be more parity if it weren't for this perfect storm run by Alabama.
So what I'm saying though is you don't think based off of all those factors you just said, you don't think if it was so you're saying if it was an extended playoff, Alabama wouldn't have been as dominant?
No, what I'm saying is that
there's other factors that have led into Alabama.
Well, because the whole reason why this conversation began was because you were talking about, not prestige not factoring into it. What I'm saying is like this whole run is like it's not like Alabama was a forgotten program. Nick Saban didn't go take over, Texas Tech, who's never, won much of anything.
I'm not saying prestige isn't going in. I'm saying we can't say, oh, there's more prestige in the FBS. It's different prestige in the FBS compared to the FCS. I mean, the FCS has several very prestigious programs for the FCS, whereas there's several prestigious programs in the FBS for the FBS. And overall, I mean, yeah.
I'll say this. I think it's because what we're seeing with North Dakota State, because while I will say yes, it's the college football playoff. Because what is it 32 teams in FCS or is it 16? Or is it 24?
32.
32?
I don't remember. I think
it's bigger than 4.
It's up there. It's up there than 16. It's bigger than 16. I know.
Yeah.
That.
So, in a bigger tournament like that, it's not going to be like the NCAA tournament, where anything can happen. The bigger, badder, more physical team will win that game. There's no question about it. No one's sitting here calling for a 32-64 team playoff at the FBS level. But I think also we're seeing kind of in both situations in Alabama and with North Dakota State that if you want to get noticed, if you want to get your name out there, if you want to get your brand out there, if you want to be the cream of the crop, if you are the cream of the crop in football, you're going to go to North Dakota State or you're going to go to Alabama. You're not going to go to some of these other schools. So
I don't know. I
It's
mean,
all I'm saying. The way that it's gone is
right.
it's all funneled into like one school. That's what our whole argument is on the college football playoff. That's why there's no
So
parity, because everything just funnels right into Alabama because of this run that they're on.
So I guess I was just misinterpreting what your argument was. I thought you were saying if the FBS had an expanded playoff like the FCS does, Alabama wouldn't have had this type of dominance.
No, I'm not saying they wouldn't have. I'm saying that like I don't think that it necessarily means that a bigger playoff wouldn't work.
Right. I mean, just like in the FCS, it doesn't mean it, you know,
Right, but
it's just more fun. They don't the games throughout basically all of December are much more meaningful
right.
than they are in the FBS level, which is it makes it a lot more fun. I mean, look, we saw the 8 seed upset the 1 seed. Um, I mean, we were on track to potentially see North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. And Montana State broke that up by beating South Dakota State. So there was a lot of interesting storylines that you could see a lot of interesting storylines as well in an expanded FBS playoff. But still, what I don't want to take anything away from North Dakota State. 9 championships in 11 years under 3 different head coaches.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and that includes the quarterback that we're going to talk about later, Carson Wentz.
True. Yeah, let's go ahead and get back on track here because we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent early on. So we're getting into first of all, we want to talk about the college football championship game last night between Alabama and Georgia. Started off a little bit of I don't want to say a snooze fest. It just both teams couldn't actually punch it into the end zone. It was 9-6 Alabama at halftime.
Georgia did, but it got overturned.
True. Yes, they did on a strip sack. Zamir White touchdown run put the Dogs up 13-9 after the third, and then the action started in the last 10 minutes of the game. Bryce Young hits Cameron. Same. Cameron Latou, gets a pass from Bryce Young to make it 18-13. And then a couple of minutes later, Stetson Bennett hits Adonai Mitchell for a 40-yard touchdown. Bennett then hits Brock Bowers later in the game, 3:33 left. To get a touchdown, 26-18 is the score. Georgia on top. Bama trying to get the game-tying touchdown, and then Kali Ringo intercepts a pass to going back 79 yards for the pick six touchdown. Seals the 33-18 win for Georgia. Dusty not very happy in the chat. He wanted Alabama to win. Stetson Bennett finishes the game 17 for 26, 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young went 35 for 57 for 369 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. And real quick, we wanted to mention it and react to it. Georgia, we talked about it last week a little bit. I mean, Georgia's defense, we knew that they were going to have to step up in this round. They didn't force any turnovers in the SEC championship game. They forced 2 interceptions, including the game-sealing interception. They did not sack Bryce Young once in the SEC championship game. They did sack him 4 times last night. And then they held Alabama to 30 yards rushing, which that was the reason. That was one of the keys to why they were just mowing down Cincinnati, because they were just running the ball right, just overpowering the Bearcats in that semifinal game. So, the defense for Georgia came to play. It was nice to see the game become exciting because we talked about it a little bit last week as well, in the sense that when we've seen these all SEC national championships, because this is the third that at least we can remember. You had, first one, Alabama and LSU, that both games that season were not good. And then in terms of the first one was 9-6 LSU, then the second one was 21-0 Alabama. And then 4 years ago, which with Alabama and Georgia, the sour taste in everyone's mouth, I think, was the fact that Alabama probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. They didn't even play for their conference championship. This year, it felt a lot like these two teams were the best 2 teams, and so to see them finally, square off again, get a chance for that rematch. I'll be honest, I didn't want to see the rematch, and I'm kind of glad that it turned out the way that it did. And glad to see Georgia, finally get that championship. They were knocking on the doorstep of it, a few seasons ago, and they finally are able to take home the victory.
Yeah, congratulations to Georgia, all their fans. I know it's been a long time coming. Their first championship since 1980. That's a long time. I mean, that's even older than me. Um, which, yeah. But
Not by much.
not by much. 7 years. 7 years. But hey, Georgia performed exactly the way they needed to perform in this game. Defensively, they needed to take care of the ball. They held Alabama in check on the rushing statistic, which is just unbelievable because last week we were talking about just how good Alabama is at running back consistently, it seems like. So for Georgia to come out and play like the way we know they can play, the way they played all season long, it's just a good ending to the season because honestly, I feel like Georgia was the best team this season. They had one bad game in the SEC championship game, whereas Alabama, they lost to A&M. They had to battle back from behind against Auburn. Alabama, they were really good. They're the second best team in the country, hands down. But Georgia all season looked to be the best team. And so it was good to see the best team win again. And, it was a game that kind of had everything for everybody. I mean, like I said, I turned it off. I fell asleep at halftime. Not because I chose to. I had to take NyQuil, okay? But, the first half, you had you thinking one way, and then to come out in the second half and really get exciting. That's a good thing for the game, one. But secondly, for it to be such a good game and to be one that people are talking about with Georgia coming out on top, it's a good thing for the city of Indianapolis as well. It was a game people are going to remember, and Indianapolis yet again put on another good show on a national stage for a major championship. So it's a win-win situation. You get your best team winning the championship and Indianapolis putting on a good show.
Yeah, and just a great run by Georgia this season, and it's sad the college football season is over. We're done talking about college football for.
You have to say one thing though. The best thing I've seen all day, reaction-wise or posts about the game last night, happened in the post-game presser with Alabama. Jamison Williams and Bryce Young both got done with their pressers, went to get up, and Nick Saban said, "Hold on, guys, before you go." He just gushed about these guys, how much they mean to the program, and he was telling the media, "Don't define their legacies on this one game. They played their hearts out. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been in this position." On and on and on. And that just goes to show you why players love going to play for Nick Saban so much.
Yeah.
And I think Alabama fans know that too, that if not for Nick Saban, they would not be having this kind of success right now. And if you ask diehard Alabama fans, they are worried for the day when Nick Saban chooses to retire.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, Bryce Young should be back next year, isn't he?
He's only I think he's only a sophomore.
Right. So Bryce Young will be back next year. So Alabama will be right back in the thick of things next year as well. So
they do lose weapons offensively, but when do they not lose weapons? And all of a sudden, it's wait a second, there's Devontae Smith part 4 back there. I mean, what?
Yeah. They lose the Heisman Trophy winner in Devonta Smith, and they lose and Najee Harris. And then what do? They're playing for the national championship again. So I think they'll be okay.
They still have I think 2 guys that are projected to go in the first round as wide receivers, John Mechie and Jamison Williams. I mean, come on.
Well, before
bountiful riches.
well, before we switch over to the NFL, let's go ahead and hear from our friends of the show. First, from Anchor. We want to let you guys know that we are able to put on the podcast every week because of Anchor, anchor.fm. You can either record your podcast directly to the website itself, or you can do what we do, which is record it externally and then upload it. Once you upload it, you can insert your own commercials. That's the great thing, is that Anchor lets you monetize right away. So if you're looking to get something out of it right immediately, you can. And then it just Anchor distributes your podcast to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, a bunch of different websites, so that you can get out there. So it's a really good website to use. So we really endorse using Anchor. Also, the Crash Course podcast is brought to you by Eat Lunch and Board Game. It's a podcast by my cousin Adam Collins, where he talks about how playing board games can build connections while at work. So he's got guests on pretty much every week. So go over to Eat Lunch and Board Game and support that podcast. And remember that you can follow us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go follow or go subscribe to us on YouTube, 3C Media. If you missed our Madden draft last week, our cover athlete draft, that is all over on the YouTube channel. So go check that out, 3C Media over there. Also on TikTok, 3C Media, some exclusive content over there. And remember, you can watch us live every week. We've got a lot of people in the chat today. Elle's in the chat, Megan's in the chat. They're both yelling at me because we were a little bit late. Sorry about that. We've got Nikki lurking. She's riding on a high right now as Joe Judge is out as the coach of the New York Giants. No more quarterback sneaks on 3rd and 9. And then, of course, Dusty in here drowning his sorrows from the Alabama loss. So glad to have you guys all in here on the chat. Twitch.tv/CraigCrash. You can watch us live and interact with us every single week. And then remember, you can listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. I can see B. Scott is ready to go. He's ready to launch into the Colts conversation here. So real quick, before we get into our NFL playoff preview, a team that is not going to the NFL playoffs, even though it looked like they were going to make it to the NFL playoffs. They had
2 weeks ago, they had a 93% probability of making the playoffs.
Yeah, they were going to be 10-7. They were going to be one win ahead of what we had predicted. I think earlier this season, I think we both were like pretty much on the 9-8 train, which is what they ended up, but they don't make the playoffs. Just a wild, into their season. They lose to the Jaguars. They were, I think, 16-point favorites. They lose 26. They lose 26-11. Trevor Lawrence found Laquan Treadwell on the first drive of the game. Jaguars led 13-3 at halftime. Lawrence then found Marvin Jones for a touchdown to make it 23-3. Michael Pittman scored a touchdown in garbage time. The Colts added a 2-point conversion, but it was far too little, far too late. Stats from the game: Carson Wentz went 17 for 29 with 185 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Jonathan Taylor, 15 carries for 77 yards. Trevor Lawrence went 23 for 32 for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. So my reaction here, as I'm, watching the game, I'm switching back and forth between I'm at work, so I'm switching back and forth between watching the game and seeing the reactions on the Twitterverse. And a lot of the Twitterverse is calling for it was calling for Carson Wentz.
Demolition.
Yeah, demolition derby of the team. Get rid of Carson Wentz, get rid of Frank Reich, all that kind of stuff. And you know what? You can't argue on some of the facts. I mean, a lot of the blame placed on Wentz, which is where I'm at with it too. December and January, Carson Wentz completed 61% of his passes, which was his lowest mark since September, lowest for a month since September. He threw 6 touchdowns in December and January. That's his lowest total since September. He threw for 773 yards. That was his lowest output since September. Remember, the Colts started 0-3 in September. And in the last 2 games of the season, Wentz completed 58% of his passes for 2 touchdowns and I believe a pick as well in the last 2 games of the season. But Carson Wentz finished top 10 in QBR. Only he and Aaron Rodgers had single-digit INTs on the season in the top 10. He only threw 7 picks. 27 touchdowns this season ties him for the second most for his career, second only to his near MVP season where he threw 33. It's his 4th out of 6 season where he only threw 7 picks. He stayed healthy, which was a major concern heading into the season, and most importantly, the Colts can opt out of his contract after next season.
No,
So
they can opt out this year too. They have until March 6th.
they can cut him, but they still are going to take a cap hit. I'm saying
Oh yeah.
I'm saying they could just wipe the slate clean
Oh
after
yeah,
this
yeah,
next
yeah.
season. But yeah, so that's, in my opinion, for all intents and purposes, Carson Wentz will likely be the quarterback of the Colts next season. There was a lot of blame also placed, rightfully so to some extent, on Frank Reich. The Colts were 3-6 when Wentz passed for 30, when he made 30 pass attempts or more. 6-2 when Wentz attempted 30 or fewer passes. Which, I mean, the outlier there is that also includes the last 2 weeks against the Raiders and Jaguars. Those are those 2 losses where he didn't attempt 30 passes. Jonathan Taylor carries and yardage progressively went down over the last 5 weeks. His 15 carries for 77 yards were the lowest total since the last week of November versus Tampa. And if you don't have your run game ready to go against the 24th ranked run defense, then there's absolutely a problem. And I don't think really many people would disagree with you on that one. But the but for this one is that Reich and Ballard are under contract through 2026. They just signed an extension earlier last year. So as a Colts fan, you take zoom out, you take away the microscope and kind of take a few deep breaths after the gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching loss, because you have people that are dogging the roster on Twitter and then turning around and being like, you know what they should do? Get Seattle on the horn. No, that's not what's going to happen. I mean, it might. They may get on the horn of Seattle. Doesn't mean anything is going to happen. Realistic outlook for a Colts fan next year is that Reich and Wentz get one more shot. I look for moves on the rest of the coaching staff, maybe a change in offensive coordinator. I think one of the biggest glaring defense difference from last year to this year is Nick Sirianni, who's now with the Eagles. I think that plays a little bit of a factor into.
Did you know that the primary play caller on offense is Frank Reich?
That's what I'm saying is I think that there's probably going to be some internal discussions, instead of having Matthew Brady as a placeholder kind of offensive coordinator going out and being like, hey, Frank, like, you can have some sort of influence, like we can meet halfway where you like kind of maybe script what you want to call and then let an offensive coordinator kind of take it from there. Because I mean, Sirianni had the reins, right? I mean, when he was the offensive, he didn't. Okay, well then, yeah. I mean, he had to have, because how would he if he was just the puppet for Frank Reich? I doubt he gets a head coaching position.
Yeah, he may have had the play calling. I think because Joe Brady, they didn't trust. He doesn't have as much experience. So Frank Reich said, "I'm going to do the play calling. You just basically help game plan."
Right. So I think
that may have been the case.
So I think that they, look for some changes. Look, I'm going to call my shot right now. I would love for Brian Flores to strike out at every head coaching interview that he has so he can come be the defensive coordinator if something were to happen with Eberflus. Now, but my shot that I'm calling is I think Brian Flores will be the next coach of the Minnesota Vikings, so watch out for that one. I think that would...
Well,
I think
who knows that would seem like a Vikings move, but who knows since they got rid of everybody.
Well, but see,
things up.
The thing that I'm thinking of with the Vikings is I think that that's a team known for a solid defense. I think he comes in to make the defense better, and hopefully, I mean, look what he did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Look what he did with Tua. I mean, maybe he can get the same kind of production out of Kirk Cousins and have them back in a decent position. But one thing also is that the Colts need to add more talent and depth at the wide receiver tight end position. And the thing, I don't know how common this is outside of the Colts. I just know that this is what the Colts stat line looks like. Michael Pittman had over 1,000 yards, which was 700 more than Zach Pascal, who was second. Jonathan Taylor was third. So your running back who not only had 1,800 yards on the season was your third leading receiver, and then you had Zach Pascal with 300 300 receiving yards, and then Michael Pittman with over 1,000. I would imagine better teams have that more distributed, more talented wide receiving cores have those numbers a little bit more distributed. So the fact that that was the case is not great. So I look for changes like that. I want to see things like that happen. And I think that's the more realistic outlook for the Colts this offseason.
So, yeah, I agree. I agree 100% with the stuff you're saying. So, first off, Colts fans are all calling for Frank Reich and Chris Ballard and Carson Wentz to pack their bags and get out. I ask you this one question. Okay, I don't know much about front offices, who's the hot up and coming next young GM, but who would you replace Chris Ballard with that's out there? I don't know. I honestly don't know. So I can't really speak on that one. Head coach, you get rid of Frank Reich. Who are you replacing him with? Realistically, who are you replacing him with?
It's that you know is going to be better. That like not
that
just
you know is going to be better.
Not just
not that you just want. Because
right.
you can put together a Christmas list all you want. That doesn't mean Santa Claus is going to bring you everything.
just because IU puts Brad Stevens on their head coaching list every year doesn't mean
Brad Stevens is going to. I mean, hell, the last time Brad Stevens was in a college arena was just a few weeks ago, and guess what? It was at Purdue. So, IU fans, sorry, but who? It's not going to be Jim Harbaugh. I know he's looking to get back in the NFL, but guess what? Jim Harbaugh doesn't fit the culture that Jim Irsay wants, that Tony Dungy built. He just doesn't. If there's a guy that could potentially be available that's out there, that could potentially be out there, if I had to think of a name that he's not available yet, that could be, it's John Harbaugh. But is that really better? Reich is an offensive mind. You kind of want another offensive mind to work with your MVP candidate running back and help you build a better offense. We'll see. So who's out there? I would love to know. If you're in the chat and you have an idea, let us know. Same thing at quarterback. Realistically, who do the Colts go after if they cut Carson Wentz? Russell Wilson's not an option, folks. He's not coming to Indianapolis. The Colts can't afford him. They can't. Aaron Rodgers, sorry. He's not coming here either. He's going to go somewhere in a bigger market. And my guess, if he ends up anywhere, it's going to be Pittsburgh. It's kind of like Jake Query said this morning on Query and Kevin. Everybody started in the NBA after LeBron James's rookie contract was expiring. They all started dumping salary so they could have cap room. And they all thought they were smart. Like, hey, look, we're shaving off our salary. We're cutting people. We're making room. We're going to land LeBron James. Everybody had the same idea. There's only one LeBron James. Same situation. Everybody's getting set up to try to, everybody, these quarterbacks getting set up to go after Aaron Rodgers. It's just not going to happen. So who are you going to replace him with? Oh, and by the way, you don't have a first round pick. So who's in the draft that's going to land you in the second round that is going to be the next franchise quarterback? I mean, unless you're ready to trust Sam Ellinger, which not a bad option, but seriously. So when you look at the season as a whole, you got to look at it this way. Carson Wentz played pretty well. He played pretty well. He did what you want him to do as far as he stayed healthy. He made plays when you needed him to make plays, not all the time. He wasn't always that reliable. But the thing is, where his issues rose were in accuracy. He wasn't very accurate. And then the thing about that is, even with amongst his inaccuracies, he wasn't turning the ball over. Only 7 interceptions on the year. That's a really good stat. I mean, come on, 23 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. That's a really good ratio there. You can't ask for much more. You can't ask for better. I mean, it's going to happen. Now, one thing you can do is ask him to stop with the shovel passes. Trying to force a play too much is where most of his turnovers came, was when he was trying to force it and he was on his way getting sacked, and he, instead of throwing it out of bounds, he would shovel it into the back of Quentin Nelson or something. Like, yeah, what good is that going to do? So, there's some things that, obviously, but that's with Carson Wentz, you get the good with the bad. Carson Wentz can make some unbelievable plays, but at the same time, some of his decision-making isn't always the best. Folks, he's not Peyton Manning. We were all spoiled for so many years with Peyton Manning. We were spoiled with the way Andrew Luck played. guess what? There's not another Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck out there. This is who we have, and you cut him, you're on the cap, dead space for 15 million. Yeah. I know you free up another 13 million if you cut him, but you're still on for 15 million in dead cap space. That's not how this regime works. They're not going to work with dead cap space. So Carson Wentz is coming back. You're not getting anything of trade value from him. Sorry. Everybody's seen the way he's been played this year, but I'm not putting it all on him. I'm not. I can't.
Especially
the
considering
stat you gave about the wide receivers. I mean, even if you don't look at the stats, you can know that for a fact that outside of Michael Pittman, wide receivers just underperformed. I mean, get rid of the whole bunch. Zach Pascal got his contract and said, "That's it, I'm good." Ashton Dulin, come on, the guy got his first 2 career touchdowns this year. He's a practice squad type player. T.Y. Hilton is most likely going to retire. Tight end, I know everybody's saying, well, the tight ends are all set. You even know Jack Doyle is going to probably retire as well. We got Mo Alley Cox and Kyle Granson. I'm not ready to move on to Mo Alley Cox either. I think he's a hit or miss guy. You know, one game he's a superstar, and the next 4 he's totally invisible. Jury's still out for me on Kyle Granson. He was a rookie, 3rd stringer. I don't know. I still think he can turn into something, but I'm not 100% sold on the tight end room. Offensive line, outside of Quentin Nelson, and maybe Braden Smith. Braden Smith got beat pretty badly on a couple plays this past weekend, but, you know, he's had hit or misses. The entire offensive line outside of Quentin Nelson is just not good. I don't care what but Ryan Kelly's a Pro Bowler. Okay. But I think at the same time, though, if you're going to keep them, you keep them. That's not a bad player to have. Go ahead, give Quentin. I think right now, let's give Quentin Nelson his contract extension, give him his big contract, and then look to see what else we need. Because that wide receiver room needs to be blown up. We need quality depth. Well, we need a whole new starting left tackle because Eric Fisher, that experiment failed. We need quality depth on the entire offensive line. When we're having to roll out has-beens or team cast-offs from non-playoff teams as well, Julian Davenport and Samuel Tebby, that's at such an important position as left tackle. That's not going to cut it. I mean, when you're relying on those guys to be your quarterback's blind side protector, nope, not going to cut it. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I can't put a ton of blame on Carson Wentz because even if you look at this Jacksonville game, he took 6 sacks. 6. That's unacceptable for the way this offensive line is supposed to be viewed. I don't know what happened. I mean, obviously, Anthony Costanzo was a Hall of Fame type left tackle that we just underappreciated. So offensively, wide receiver, tight end, I would say the priorities are wide receiver for sure. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You can't be picky. And your first pick of the 2nd round, you are taking the best available wide receiver. I don't care if he's a speedster like T.Y. Hilton who can stretch the field. No, honestly, what you need right now is you need a guy with reliable hands that can run routes. Because outside of Michael Pittman, none of your wide receivers are reliable. Because even if Carson Wentz put it right on the money for them, they would drop it. Or they wouldn't run through their routes. It was just a lot of lazy playing, it looked like, at wide receiver. Guys just wouldn't get open. And guess what? Michael Pittman's not going to be open every play either because the defense has got wise. They knew, hey, look, the only person that's willing to play out here is number 11. So let's double him. And the other guys, can't get open. They're not good enough to get open. So it's time to stop trying to build a weaponry out of undrafted practice squad players and players that are ready to retire. Bring in some legitimate talent to flank Michael Pittman. And then the second priority, offensive line. You need a left tackle. I don't care. Maybe you don't go wide receiver in the 2nd round. You go left tackle. Whatever's best available between those 2 positions, you go for at that point. I don't want you to take a reach on a wide receiver. The best available wide receiver, it's got a 3rd round grade. You don't need to do that, obviously. But that's how you go on the offense. Defense, there's 3 reliable players there. I'll say potentially 4. So the verdict's still out on one of them. But Defensive line, DeForest Buckner. I mean, he's a leader. He had his ups and downs, but when you are getting the attention of everybody, you're not always going to perform to the highest. It's kind of like I look at Purdue, like you got George Karlaftis. He didn't put up very impressive numbers. Well, he was getting double and triple teamed every time because everybody was keying on him. Same thing with DeForest Buckner. So second player, the one that the verdict's still out on a little bit for me is Kwity Paye. I think he had a decent season for a rookie.
Well, what about the guy that they got like with the second pick? I can't remember what his last name. The guy out of Vandy. Yeah, Odengbo.
Odengbo. He came back. Remember, he came off of a pretty bad. It was either an Achilles.
Yeah, it was Achilles.
Injury,
well, what I'm saying is they'll have him too next year.
Hopefully, he'll be back too. So he played sparingly just because rehab and everything on that type of injury. So, but I'm looking at the guys that you can truly build around. I'm not going to go into. I'm looking at the guys that started truly. So DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, verdict's still out on him, because he's only a rookie. I think he performed much better than the other defensive ends we've drafted in recent years. So that you got to go on that. Darius Leonard, obviously, that's a no-brainer, and Kenny Moore. I think safety-wise, the Colts are better than people think. The injury bug really hit them, so trying to figure out some depth there. Obviously, I mean, when you're playing your third and fourth string safeties, with Blackman going out, with Blackman being back and Khari Willis, I think you're fine there. Quarterback is a major, major area of need. Outside of Kenny Moore, it's tough. I mean, I know Rock Ya-Sin played much better this year, but one has to wonder, is that because it was a contract year for him? And, he's trying to play up to that potential. So you got to wonder there. But I don't know. Kenny Moore, outside of him, that the corners need an overhaul. Linebacker, Bobby Okereke played really well, in my opinion. Still, I'm going to go back to one player. I said in the preseason, Colts fans, we're going to miss him. Guess what? We did.
Anthony Walker.
We could have really used an Anthony Walker type player. Not that Zaire Franklin did perform well. He played okay. He was good. He was solid, but his field IQ is nowhere near what Anthony Walker's was. And having a player like Anthony Walker out there would allow Darius Leonard to do more of what he does best, which is roam the field and make plays. Anthony Walker was a really good run stopper. Darius Leonard is just an all-around good player. So when you're trying to get Darius Leonard to do all of that, he played amazingly. Unfortunately, because the NFL is so in love with sacks, unfortunately, TJ Watt's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year when honestly it should be Darius Leonard with the amount of turnovers that he had a hand on, whether it was interceptions or leading the NFL in forced fumbles. I mean, come on, the guy, they call him the maniac for a reason. But that's just a handful of guys that you can really build this team around. So I get where people are frustrated with Chris Ballard and the front office because, he keeps saying, trust the process while he's sitting on piles of cash and we're going to build it through the draft and from within. And you only see like a handful of players that you've drafted that are turning into anything, and it's just like, okay, you can only trust the process for so long. Or what are you going to finally, what is it going to,
at some point you got to take a big move.
Yeah. At some point you can't say, got to trust it, because guess what? I guarantee you this probably came up in the thought process or in that demanding meeting that Jim Irsay had the other night with Reich and Ballard, that they have the best running back in the league right now. Next to probably the healthy Derrick Henry. They got the best running back in the entire league, and the shelf life of a running back that plays as much and as hard as Jonathan Taylor is not a very big shelf life. So if we want to capitalize on having a generational talent like Jonathan Taylor, then some big changes need to be made, and we need to go for it now rather than trust the process. We'll get there in the next 4 or 5 years. As long as you just trust the process, we will, well, we'll spend our money wisely and build from the draft, build from within. And no, it's time to open up the pocketbook and go get the players to put around Carson Wentz, to put around the rest of his team to fill the holes nicely. So that way this team does not waste another talent away like they did with Andrew Luck. I'm sorry, they wasted Andrew Luck away. But you can't. If you're going to ride on the back of a generational talent like Jonathan Taylor, you need to be in a win now mode. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because guess what? Once he's gone, he's gone. And good luck. So big changes have to be made, but I'm not saying blow the whole damn thing up because that's not the answer either. That's the answer for the Pacers, not for the Colts.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you want to get rid of Ballard, who are you going to replace him with? If you want to get rid of Reich, same question. Same thing with Wentz. It's easy to say get rid of them, and yes, whoever you bring in could be better. But you got to realize in the NFL, the teams that are always picking near the top 10 are the teams that are constantly getting rid of coaches and hiring the retread coaches. They all just kind of circle the wagons with each other, hiring the same guys. I mean, look, like I said, I told you off air, look, Jim Caldwell is getting called for interviews for some of these job openings. Haven't we learned by now that Jim Caldwell is not going to take one of these bottom teams and lead them to the promised land? It's not going to happen. So why is he still getting these opportunities?
Yeah.
And if that's the way if Colts fans want to go down that road and be replacing a coach every few years, all right, let's go down that road. But guess what? It doesn't end well. It is not a road you want to go down.
Not at all. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do in this offseason. They have to attack a lot of things. And we'll see. Like some of the stuff you touched on, depth on the offensive line, more wide receiver targets, and we'll see. And hopefully, I mean, that was another thing I was going to say too, is that you wonder, I love Jim Irsay, but you wonder how much of it is also ownership in the sense that, Irsay thinks we're right on the doorstep of winning a Super Bowl, and we're very far from it. Where things stand right now. So, hopefully, once we can zoom out a little bit from this season, hopefully, the Colts can start making some decisions, and even if they have to go into do something they're not used to doing, which is, spend a little bit in free agency, try to get, a wide receiver, try to get, patch up the offensive line, because that's the thing. The offensive line regressed this season quite a bit from what we're used to seeing. So, which, was just.
And I'll tell you one player, if you want to keep him around, by all means, that this is the one depth piece on the offensive line I want to keep. Danny Pinter.
Yes. Keep
utility Danny. Man, the do it all offensive lineman. I mean, hats off to the Cardinal, Danny Pinter.
Yes. I also want to say that we also need to keep Isaac Rochelle out of. He went to Notre Dame. He was with the Chargers. The Colts picked him up this past season because I follow him on TikTok and he's pretty hilarious. So we want to keep him as well. But moving on now, let's go ahead and talk about the teams that are going to the playoffs as we switch gears into our playoff preview here. First of all, I thought it'd be fun. We haven't done this in the past. Normally what we do is we make our preseason picks, and then those are just our preseason picks. They live on. They're in their own little cupboard, and we never revisit them. And so this year I was like, hey, you know what? 5th season of the podcast, maybe we should start revisiting some of our preseason picks. So looking back at what we did in the preseason, let's first go over the ones that we across the board got correct. We got the Bills in the AFC East, who won the AFC East. We got the Titans winning the AFC South. We got the Chiefs winning the AFC West. We got the Packers winning the NFC North. We've got the Buccaneers winning the NFC South. So claps for us. We got 5 of the 8 divisions correctly.
Not bad.
The ones that we missed on. Now we both missed on the AFC North. We both picked the Browns, and it was the Bengals.
Everybody picked the Browns though.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, there were I think that, there were a lot of people picking the Browns. There were some people picking the Ravens and Steelers, but nobody thought the Bengals were going to go from the 5th pick to being the 4th seed, the AFC North champions. So that's pretty incredible.
did you know that nobody has ever texted about a Cincinnati Bengals playoff victory? The last time the Cincinnati Bengals won a playoff game, I believe, was like 1991, and texting wasn't invented until 1992.
That's actually incredible. That's insane. Yeah. We also so B Scott got the Cowboys correct. I thought I'd go out on a limb and pick the Washington football team. That was a terrible pick by me. And then B Scott and I were split on the Rams and Cardinals. The Rams got the win there. So I think individually we both each got 6 of 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Not bad. That's a passing grade.
that is a passing grade. So, first to take a look back at those, which division, to ask a couple of questions, which division prediction do you take the most pride in? For me, I take a lot of pride in that Bills pick. There's a couple other ones that you could go on. None of the other ones that I picked correctly, I really, a lot of people were picking the Rams, Buccaneers, and Packers were easy. Obviously, got the Washington football team one wrong. The Chiefs were an easy pick. The Titans, I don't think really a lot of people thought the Colts were going to win the AFC South, and of course we got the AFC North wrong. So I think, the Bills going into the season, New England added a lot of talent to their roster. Even though the Bills were a popular pick, but given what we last saw from the Bills, which was getting blown out by Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, as you saw with my Washington pick, I have a propensity to go for like the sexy, like kind of like, oh, weird, like outside of the box pick, and I could have picked the Patriots there, but instead I stuck to my gut. I kept with the Bills, and it paid off for me.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the NFC East pick because that's just the division that for so long it just felt like nobody wanted to win it, and I said the Cowboys are just going to kind of have to win it by default because nobody else wants to win it. And I don't know, it was just kind of one of those toss-ups for me. So I'm proud of that one because that one could have gone a lot of different directions, to be honest.
Well, and and it's the same reason why, the Washington football team ended up being my prediction that I want back is because, going into this season, I think the problem with the NFC East is that, like, you saw some teams. Now, we saw the Giants they made a lot of moves in the offseason. You thought they were potentially going to be a contender. And you saw, they added Kenny Golladay.
I
They
agree with you. That's why I'm laughing. It's
Like, I thought you were like, oh, no, I was like, oh, I thought they were going to at least contend for a playoff spot. And it's, and you had Washington bringing in, Ryan Fitzpatrick. They had that great defense. So you thought, like, if Alex Smith can get Washington to the playoffs, they were kind of a revolving door of quarterbacks last season and still won the NFC East because the Cowboys have been habitually playing down to the rest of there's no reason why the Cowboys shouldn't have won however many NFC East in a row with how much talent they have and how much the gap between them and the rest of the NFC East is, but somehow every year they keep underachieving while the rest of the NFC East achieves just enough to supersede them. So the Cowboys this season actually finally played to their potential, and look what happens. So
that's true.
Yeah, Washington, they're the division prediction I want back. They are another team whose leading receiver had 1,000 yards and the second was in the 300s. So the Colts receiving core is like the Washington receiving core.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say their leading receiver, Terry McLaurin.
Yep, that's who it was. And then I think the second was like, I don't even remember. The Washington football team went from being the second best defense in terms of yards, the fourth in terms of points per game, the 22nd in terms of yards per game, and the 25th in terms of points per game. So they went from being second in terms of yards to 22nd, fourth in terms of points per game to 25th. So defense really took a step back. And I think, obviously I put too much faith in the defense and Ron Rivera, but I'm interested to see how they attack the 2022 offseason with the rebrand coming. I don't know if it'll work out or not, but I do sense a kind of 2011 Miami Marlins, esque type. Not maybe to that extreme where they just go and, hey, are they an all-star? Get them. but I think that we might see them be a little bit more aggressive, try to get a few high-profile free agents because, hey, first year of the rebrand, we want people buying jerseys. We want fans in the stands so they can fall into the tunnel, like we saw them against the Eagles. So, I mean, they're going to want to, pack FedEx Field next season, I think, with that new rebrand. So I'll be interested to see how they attack the offseason.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
What was your disappointing pick?
The Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a team that went out. You're an all-star. You're a Pro Bowler. Come on in. We got a spot for you. Money doesn't matter. We're just going to kind of throw it around, but bring everybody in. And then they flopped, and they flopped hard. Now, granted, I don't think anybody expected the Bengals to be this far ahead of schedule, but it's kind of interesting when you add your quarterback's favorite wide receiver from college, who's just as good. Instant chemistry. See how funny that is? Yeah, but
who is Carson Wentz leading receiver at North Dakota State? Bring him in now.
I don't know. They probably just ran the ball. Probably had some big 300-pound white boy that just ran the ball right over people. Instead of taking the easy touchdown, he decided to hit the hit stick.
Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely want the Browns pick back because, the Bengals played really, really well this year. And I kind of feel silly, especially considering if another team that made the playoffs from that division was the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, I mean, the Browns fell flat on their face. Oh, yeah. I want that one back.
I don't blame you there. AFC so our AFC wildcard predictions, I had the Ravens, Colts, and Patriots. B. Scott had the Steelers, Colts, and Patriots. So you were a bit more on track than I was. Not much of a surprise there. Actual wildcard teams are the Raiders, Patriots, and Steelers. NFC side of things, you and I just flip-flopped on Cardinals and Rams. Whoever we didn't have winning the division, we had making the playoffs anyway. We each had an NFC East team or NFC West team, the Seahawks, also going. And then I had the Cowboys and you had the Bears. The actual NFC wildcard teams were the Cardinals, 49ers, and Eagles. And, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but the biggest surprise team in the postseason, kind of throwing that question out there. And there's a lot to choose from. I mean, you've got the Eagles who, made the playoffs, kind of out of nowhere. They put it together. You have the Bengals, who we talked about, but I'm going to go with the Raiders. They're the first team since 1961, the fourth in NFL history to make the playoffs after a midseason coaching change. We all know about that. We don't need to, get into that anymore. We all, know of the Henry Ruggs situation. A lot of terrible things, a lot of distractions this season for the Raiders. They were 6-7 after a 41-14 blowout loss to the Chiefs, and then they won 4 straight to end the season. But not only did they win 4 straight to end the season, they were all by 4 points or less. So they won close games. It's not like they, caught fire and had these insane, fluky, 35-0 wins. But they, won a lot of close games, which I think bodes, interestingly enough, you'd be like, oh, why wouldn't you want to blow all these teams out? Well, because in the playoffs, it's a little bit different. There's not too many potential blowouts that happen in the NFL playoffs. So the fact that you can win close games, win in the face of adversity, I feel like that sets you up pretty well for the postseason. So very, very intrigued to see the Raiders in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see the Eagles. To be honest, this is a team that was a dumpster fire last year. And for them to make the run that they did under first-year head coach Nick Sirianni and essentially under a first-year quarterback in Jalen Hurts, they played really well. I mean, the addition of Devontae Smith, you can't, overlook that. I mean, setting the Eagles' receiving yard record for a rookie by 1 yard. I think it was.
A record's a record.
A record's a record. That's all that matters in the end. But I mean, he played really, really well, and that was a game changer for this team. And Nick Sirianni kind of brought everything together. So I'm really interested to watch them play. I think this is a team that, are they going to win in the first round? Probably not. But
Tough
this is
task. You got
also,
to go on the road against Tampa, so that's going
yeah,
to be
it's going
tough.
to be a tall task. But this is a team to definitely keep your eye on for the future, especially for like, how many first round picks does this team have? It seems like
3.
three.
Yeah.
See, we're close.
First
But
team since Minnesota in 2013 to have, I think that's what the stat showed the other day. So the first team since Vikings in
and
2013.
their first 2 picks are back to back, 15 and 16. And that's set in stone. And those aren't even their picks. Those are picks that belong to somebody else that they swindled. Um, so yeah, I'm interested to see this team moving forward. Really, I think the pieces are going to start falling into place for the Philadelphia Eagles again. Quick question here. I'm looking at the bracket for this. Does the way this bracket's set up is so weird? Do they reseed, or do
They don't.
they
They
shuffle
don't.
it?
They don't reseed, but what happens is that so the lowest seed that wins will play the 1 seed that has the bye. So, like for instance,
Okay.
if let's say the Patriots beat the Bills and the Chiefs beat the Steelers, then that means that the Patriots would go to Tennessee in the divisional round because they're the 6 seed and the Steelers were the 7 seed, and
Yeah.
they're eliminated. So it doesn't reseed. It's just in
Gets
the
reshuffled.
in the divisional round, the highest seed plays the lowest seed, and the
Yeah.
2 middle seeds play. So,
I always get so confusing.
oh
to
yeah,
me. Like, why
yeah,
don't you just set it up that way in your bracket?
yeah.
Like, you just, like, no matter what, the winner of this game, like the 4-5 game, is going to have to play
I think
the
reseeding
one seed.
in playoffs is a great idea. I think it would be interesting. Like that was we were the reason why we were late is because we were talking about the college football playoffs. So our college football discussion was even before we started the podcast, and that's what I was going to say to you. I think my official proposal for the how to fix the college football playoff is you go back to the old BCS games. So you go back to none of them are in the playoff. None of those are playoff games. So you have the Big Ten champ and Pac-12 champ in the Rose Bowl. You've got the Big 12 and SEC champs in the Sugar Bowl. You've got the ACC in the Orange Bowl, ACC champs. So you see Pitt over there. And then after, like, those are all 4 playing games, and then the winner of those 4 games, they go to the college football playoff. You seed them based on that's when you seed them, and then you just have the college football playoff from there. And I mean, yeah, it'll extend an extra week because instead of you'll still have them all on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, or whatever. But so you keep that tradition. But so I think reseeding in the postseason would be a good idea. It kind of makes sense.
You know what would be even more fun in the NFL?
What?
Go the route of the WNBA
What do they do?
and get rid of conferences altogether. You got 16 teams that make the playoffs. You seed them 1 through 16.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly a podcast idea for a future episode is should we or should we not get rid of divisions in sports? Because divisions in sports or conferences or whatever you want to say, because the way it was originally designed was because back when these leagues started, you didn't fly everywhere. You're going on buses and trains, and it was a lot easier to just go play. If you're the Indiana Pacers, it's a lot easier to just go play Cleveland than it would be to go out to LA and play the Lakers. So, it's easier to just go to the surrounding areas than it is to just keep making cross country trips. And
See,
now
I still think the WNBA has it though. It's
they have
just when it comes to
conferences. They
they
just
have
don't.
conferences and divisions. It just, when it comes down to the playoffs,
Right. It just doesn't matter
if
like
you
it
are
does
a
in the
top
NBA.
6, if you are one of the top teams that's playoff eligible, like if you fall into the playoff bracket,
Yeah.
you're in the playoffs, and that's how it's seeded that way.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. Real quick, before we get into our playoff predictions, we want to also revisit our Super Bowl picks. My pick for the Super Bowl was the Bills over the Rams. B. Scott's was the Cardinals over the Titans. And so before we get into our predictions here, what are our confidence levels on our Super Bowl picks? Mine is 50%, and you'll see why when we get into the weeds here, because I think, in my opinion, what makes it really tough is that the AFC is really anybody's game, in my opinion. I can see anybody. Heck, I could even make a case for the Pittsburgh Steelers to just because we saw what they did in 2005. We saw what they did in 2005 when they had the retirement tour for Jerome Bettis and went in as a wild card team and did all that kind of thing. So who knows? But I'm about 50%. I could go either way. I'm not ready to abandon it yet, but I'm not super confident either.
I'm probably about 30% because of the injuries that have piled up for my Super Bowl champ Arizona Cardinals.
And even, for the Titans too.
And the Titans too. I don't think either one of my teams is going to make it to the, honestly. The only reason why I think the Titans are the 1 seed is because Kansas City screwjacked around early on in the season and didn't turn it on until halfway through.
Right.
Because there was a point in the season where it's like, is Kansas City even going to make the playoffs? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh wait, here they are. They're just late to the party.
Right. So let's go ahead and get now into our playoff predictions. What we'll do is I'll go through my wild card weekend, and then B Scott will go through his. We'll keep alternating through our playoff until we get into the Super Bowl. So for me, wild card weekend, AFC. You've got the 2-seeded Chiefs against the 7-seeded Steelers, the 3-seeded Bills against the 6-seeded Patriots, and the 4th-seeded Bengals against the 5th-seeded Raiders. For me, wild card weekend, I'm going Chiefs over Steelers. If these teams played not too long ago and the Chiefs just absolutely steamrolled Pittsburgh, and it's not one of those things where Pittsburgh was a better team and just got steamrolled. It's not like when the Browns beat the Bengals 30-0 out of nowhere earlier this season. I think the Chiefs are a better team. It's in Kansas City. And we saw what the Steelers did last year, in the postseason. So I just don't think. I think this is going to be Ben Roethlisberger's last game. I don't see them really doing anything in the postseason. The Bills, I think that first game that the Patriots won in Buffalo 14-10, I don't think that was really indicative of what this game is going to be. The Bills, I think, are a lot better than that team that lost to the Patriots, and the Patriots were in a really good streak of the season. I think the 33-21 win by the Bills is a little bit more indicative of what we're going to see. So I've got the Bills over the Patriots, and then I've got the Raiders over the Bengals. The Bengals haven't won a playoff game in 30 years. Like I said before, I really like the fact that the Raiders are not only getting hot right now, but also winning a lot of close games, which is what you need to do in the postseason. And then in the NFC, I've got the Buccaneers. First of all, sorry, I'll give you the schedule first. You've got the 2-seeded Buccaneers against the 7-seeded Eagles, the 3-seeded Cowboys against the 6-seeded 49ers, and the 4th-seeded Rams against the 5th-seeded Cardinals. So I've got the Buccaneers over the Eagles. Not a lot to go into there. I don't think Tom Brady loses in the first round, especially not to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. You've got, the game I waffled on the most was Cowboys and 49ers. I really badly wanted to pick the Niners here, but Dallas is 3-1 at home in the postseason since 2009. So they're good about making it through the first round, just not the second round, which, hey, we're incrementally getting better. For a while, they couldn't get out of the first round. And then I got to, battle of our Super Bowl picks, Rams and Cardinals, I got to stick with the Rams. So I got the Rams advancing over the Cardinals and in the divisional round.
So for me, I have the Chiefs over the Steelers. It's the Chiefs. Until they prove me wrong, they're good. I am going to go with the Bills over the Patriots. I feel like the Bills are starting to click. Early in the season, they just kind of, I don't know, they didn't seem like themselves, much like the Chiefs. The Patriots started off hot, and I think they're starting to cool off. And I think that really kind of started with the loss in Indianapolis, to be honest. That really kind of took the wind out of their sails. And then I, too, am going to go with the Raiders over the Bengals. mostly because the running game for the Raiders is solid. If you got a lead and you just need to keep pounding away and run clock, Josh Jacobs is a really good option for that. So I feel like I feel pretty good about the Raiders winning it. However, the biggest kink that's going to be thrown into the armor for some of these potential games, depending on when the Kansas City and Pittsburgh game and the Cincinnati and Oakland games are played, there could be potential snowstorms happening if these games are being played on Saturday or early Sunday in different places. Um, I don't think that really affects the Chiefs and the Steelers too much because both of those teams know how to play in bad weather. But the Bengals and the Raiders, that game could get interesting because the Raiders play in the desert and inside, but the Bengals at the same time have a lot of players from SEC country. So
True.
that could be interesting. But I have the Raiders advancing. Just they have a little bit more experience and they seem to be playing with a pretty good chip on their shoulder. I think out of all the games in the AFC, that one wild card weekend, that one's going to be the most entertaining because that one's going to be the most back and forth affair. On the NFC side of things, the Bucks over the Eagles. Like I said, the Eagles are an intriguing team, but for the future, not right now. It's still Tom Brady in the playoffs. Enough said there. I do have the Cowboys over the 49ers. The Cowboys, it depends on which team you have showing up, but I think for them to be able to rest a lot of their guys in week 18 was a good thing for them. They weren't having to really play for anything at that point. So get some guys, get some rest and get healthy, and that really sets them up well. In the battle of our Super Bowl champs, I have to go with the LA Rams.
Ooh, abandoned ship on the
I'm
Cardinals.
mostly because of the injury bug that has
Yeah.
hit the Cardinals, and it's hard to overcome some of these injuries. I mean, look, J.J. Watt out for the entire season. Um, so I don't know. I still, I think on the NFC side of things, this game is going to be the most exciting game as well, and it'll be close and a back and forth affair as well. But ultimately, I think the Rams come out on top just a little bit more experience, especially at the quarterback position. I know he doesn't have much postseason experience, but when you have a connection like Stafford and Cooper Kupp have right now, I mean, that's going to be a tough one to shut down. Especially if the Cardinals had trouble shutting down on the final drive of the Colts game, Carson Wentz and Desmond Patman, and they could have some issues.
Also, just I just lost my train of thought. Never mind. All right. So moving on to the no DeAndre Hopkins either for the Cardinals. That's also
Yeah,
a big blow for them. So yeah, moving on to the divisional round. For me, I've got the Titans over the Raiders. I just don't. I think the Titans are just the better team. I don't really I think I'm bold enough to say Las Vegas is going to the AFC Championship game. I think the road ends there. And then I do have the Bills over the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have shown this year that they are beatable, and that Bills defense is really good. So I think that's where the road ends for Mahomes and the Chiefs. I know it's going to be a game that's in Kansas City. That'll the exact field, exact stadium where they lost last year's AFC Championship game, but I've got the Bills winning that one. NFC side, I have the Packers over the Rams. LA looked bad earlier at the Packers and earlier this season. They needed a fourth quarter rally to even make it 36-28. And I just they went from looking really good earlier in the season to looking very mediocre even when they were winning late in the season. I mean, that blown lead against the 49ers was bad too. So not super confident in the Rams. That's why my confidence was 50% on my Super Bowl pick because I don't have the Rams going too far. And then the Buccaneers over the Cowboys. Cowboys consistently lose in the second round, even if they do manage to get their way out of the first round. So I've got the Buccaneers there. So setting up a AFC Championship game of the Titans and Bills and the Buccaneers and Packers rematch.
I too have the Titans over the Raiders. I feel like Julio Jones is starting to come on finally for the Titans. And with him, it kind of changes up the landscape for the Titans, especially without having Derrick Henry. So between him and AJ Brown, that's a really formidable passing attack. Ryan Tannehill is a very underrated passer as a quarterback, and this is definitely going to be a hard out for a lot of teams. Um, so I got the Titans over the Raiders. I think the Chiefs are going to win over the Bills. The Bills defense has been spotty to me this year. I mean, what they gave up like 500 yards rushing to Jonathan Taylor a couple weeks back. I mean, well, I know it wasn't that much, but it felt like it. And that was in bad weather in Buffalo. I mean, there's some things to be had. And this is a Chiefs team that just knows how to, it seems like, when they got your number, they've got your number. They just know how to wear you down. And I think that ends up happening to the Bills D again against the Chiefs. So I got the Chiefs moving on. I'm setting up an AFC championship of Tennessee versus Kansas City. On the NFC side of things, I have the Packers over the Rams. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I can go ahead and say it. Aaron Rodgers is going to get this team all the way to the Super Bowl just so he can give the NFL the good old single double barreled salute, or the double single barreled salute. Like, more and more people are, he's just like, he just wants to get there and win the whole thing just to say screw you to everybody. Like, did you hear the rumor that came out today that Aaron Rodgers is reportedly going, if they make the Super Bowl, he's going to reportedly boycott the Super Bowl?
I've
He was
not heard
like,
of that.
he responded, he said, why on earth, why would I boycott the Super Bowl? What good does that do? Anybody? Like, so I think he's just kind of like got a screw you attitude. I'm just gonna go win this whole damn thing just because I can, to
Yeah.
be honest. So I got Green Bay moving on. Spoiler alert, but I got Green Bay moving on to the NFC Championship, and I've got the Buccaneers over the Cowboys. The Buccaneer, it's Tom Brady still. He still has Rob Gronkowski. I mean, this is just they're defending Super Bowl champs for a reason. And the Cowboys just can't do anything great. You know, one week they're good at this, another week they're good at that. And it's just like you never know what team you're going to get. And unfortunately, you can't play Jekyll and Hyde football against Tom Brady. You just can't do it. So the Bucks win, setting up Green Bay versus Tampa Bay. Why are we so boring? We went 1-2, 1-2. We went chalk
Well, you
on.
did. You did.
Uh,
I did 1-3, 1-2.
oh, okay. Yeah, I went chalk.
You went completely chalk. I mean, I basically went chalk too.
Whatever.
But setting up
Whatever.
the championship weekend, AFC for me, it honestly, for me, it all depends on Derrick Henry's status. He could be back maybe at this point. He had 3, and he did have 3 touchdowns in the meeting earlier this season that Tennessee won when Tennessee played the Bills. So that'll depend. We'll see. He's still, in my opinion, even if he plays at that point, he's not going to be at 100%. So he's not going to be necessarily the same Derrick Henry. I've got the Bills over the Titans. I'm sticking with my Bills. We'll see what happens. So I've got them moving on to the Super Bowl, and then in the NFC. I've got the Packers over the Buccaneers. Just some fun facts here. Did you know that Tom Brady has not won back-to-back Super Bowls since his first 2 against the Rams and the Panthers? And then he
Really?
also hasn't won a Super Bowl in an even-numbered year since his first 2 Super Bowl wins either. So, yeah, he's won
Why
in
does it
like
just feel like he wins it like all the
2015,
time?
2017, 2019, 2021. So 4 of the last 8 years he's won, but it's all been on odd-numbered years.
So he's like the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, he's the antithesis of the San Francisco Giant. He wins on odd number years. The Giants win on even numbered years.
But at least he makes the championship every year. I mean, the San
Tr-
Francisco Giants, they take every other year off.
pretty much. But yeah, I've got that sets up my Super Bowl as the Bills and Packers. So I keep one of my 2 Super Bowl teams in there. Just can't commit to
There
the
you go.
Rams.
There you go. Well, I have the Chiefs over the Titans in the AFC Championship, mostly because the status of Derrick Henry is uncertain. Like you said, even if he is back, he's not going to be 100%. He's just not. And that's a huge blow for the Titans, especially if you're going to beat the Chiefs. the way you're going to do it is by keeping them off the field and having a really good run game. Without Derrick Henry, that's a hard task against the Kansas City Chiefs, especially as considering they're rounding into form right now. And that's what's scary about the Kansas City Chiefs is that they're just finally getting back to where they normally play. So I got the Chiefs moving on to the Super Bowl, but not so fast. We're not going to have a rematch of last year by any stretch of the imagination. If you heard me talking earlier, I said spoiler alert. I got the Green Bay Packers in the NFL in the Super Bowl playing against the Kansas City Chiefs.
The State Farm Bowl.
The State Farm Bowl, yes. Whoever wins this game gets the better rate. Look, like I said, Aaron Rodgers is just a man on a mission right now. He's got a lot to prove because Green Bay is already packing his bags for him, for him to get out the door because they're ready to move on to Jordan Love.
Why? If they saw what he did against the Chiefs earlier this season.
Pride.
Yeah.
Up front office pride. Plain and simple.
True.
You know, it's pride at this point. So not like Matt LaFleur. I think Matt LaFleur would love to have Aaron Rodgers back. I know he would. I mean, come on, who wouldn't? I mean, so I got a Super Bowl of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers. Now this is good. This is like old school AFL, NFL.
Literally the first Super Bowl ever was the Packers and Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Chiefs
No, Packers won the first two Super Bowls. Yeah,
okay.
First two Super Bowls were won by the Packers, and then the Chiefs beat the Vikings, I think. No, that was Super Bowl 4. Super Bowl 3 was Joe Namath over the Colts for the Jets. So with my Super Bowl, I can't, it felt like this. I felt bad because I was like, if I do what I did a couple of years ago with baseball, because if you all remember, I picked the Dodgers and the Yankees to play in the World Series, and then I got swept up in Slam Diego, and I picked the Padres over the Twins, completely disregarding my earlier pick before that season started. And of course, I picked the Padres and Yankees, and neither team really did much of anything either this year, so it's kind of more of the same. But I can't completely bail on my Super Bowl pick. I said it before the season started. I think the Bills will win the Super Bowl, finally break that curse. I think this is where they do it. They beat the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl, so I don't really have a lot of stuff to back it up. I'm just staying loyal to my pick. I don't do that very often. Normally, like I said, we completely just leave our preseason picks in the rearview mirror and just kind of, go from what we think is going to happen. So I'm going with the Bills. I'm not saying I'm super confident they would beat the Packers if they played, but I am going to go with the Bills to win the Super Bowl over the Green Bay Packers.
I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. I think it just would be. I don't know. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Because I want to see Aaron Rodgers. I want to see Roger Goodell have to hand that trophy over to Aaron Rodgers. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's really any animosity between the two of them, but I want to see Aaron Rodgers.
It's the symbolism of it.
I want to see the owner or the GM of the Green Bay Packers have to hand Aaron Rodgers that trophy.
It's the symbolism of it all because you had it this year in baseball too. I mean, remember the All-Star game gets taken out of Atlanta, and then the Braves win the World Series. So Rob Manfred has to hand the trophy to the city of Atlanta after he, spurned them earlier in the year. So, I mean, now granted,
what did Roger Goodell do to Aaron Rodgers?
Well,
or is it just the vaccine mandate?
But what I'm saying is it's symbolic. So the NFL kind of, now, to be fair, I want to make it known that I don't agree with what Aaron Rodgers did, just like I don't agree with the law that ultimately caused Atlanta to lose the All-Star game. I'm not saying it's right for Manfred to move it. I'm just saying that the circumstances regarding them moving it, I'm not necessarily against. But what I will say, too, is that I think this might just be in a year where we're seeing a lot of animosity between, the players and the owners. I know definitely in baseball with the lockout, but also somewhat too with, with some of the stuff in the NFL, at least specifically with Green Bay. I think it would be very symbolic that, you have to, both sides have to kind of acknowledge the people that they casted aside earlier on in the season. I think that's kind of a funny way to kind of put a cap on the sports season.
I think also Aaron Rodgers leading the Packers to a Super Bowl championship, and then ownership just letting him walk.
Doing the Trent Dilfer effect. Be like, yeah, you won a Super Bowl, and now get lost.
A
I mean,
little bit,
not the same, but kind of.
Aaron Rodgers is probably also going to win MVP. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but yeah. So yeah, I just think the Packers, just because it just kind of feels like that's the way we're headed right now.
Well, there you have it. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills to win the Super Bowl. B. Scott has the Packers winning the Super Bowl. We will see.
And that means we are both totally wrong.
We're both way off base. So it'll be fun. Of course, make sure you're locked in each and every week because we are going to be coming back to the postseason and covering that pretty extensively. So be on the lookout for that. We want to remind you that you can follow us at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook, 3C Media. Go check out the YouTube channel 3C Media over there. We're going to also check out TikTok 3C Media. Watch us live every week. We want to thank everybody in the chat again. Elle, Megan, Nikki, Dusty, everybody in the chat that hung out tonight. Also, remember you can interact with us each and every week by going to twitch.tv/CraigCrash. We record Tuesday nights ahead of our Wednesday release on all the audio platforms and YouTube. So, and then remember you can listen every week on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week, again, like I said, we'll be getting into the weeds of the wild card weekend and giving you guys a preview for the divisional round of the NFL postseason. Be on the lookout for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, have a good one, everybody.